All right, we are back live. It's the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Carter, how we doing, man?
Doing really well, man. Had a great 4th of July last week and just a good holiday weekend. Getting back into it this week, just grinding, doing it. How about you, man? How's everything going?
Doing well. Enjoyed the July 4th holiday, the burgers and the dogs. So, you
Yeah, I
know,
smoked up. So we went all out. I mean, we had burgers, hot dogs. I smoked pork shoulders. So had some pulled pork, all kinds of stuff, man. It was a really good time, man. So, happy belated 4th of July to everybody. But it's back to it now. We're in the dead of summer. It's the dead time. Baseball's about to stop for the All-Star break. There's no football, no basketball, no hockey, nothing. So get through these last few weeks and then fall camp starts.
yes, sir. That is what we got to get rolling. Let me pull up the show notes. Or where do you want to start today?
Yeah, no, man. So I was just going through some stuff over the week and last weekend, and obviously there's the topic of the day for the Notre Dame people is obviously Ivan Taylor and what happened there, and we'll jump into that later. Big time news coming out of there, and the timing of it was a bit coincidental, and we'll jump into that. But I did see this one thing, and I thought it was very interesting. Obviously, Ryan Day is a little bit on the hot seat here in Columbus, Ohio. And so I saw these stats and thought it was really interesting comparing Ryan Day's first 5 seasons as a head coach to Kirby Smart's, right? And obviously Kirby Smart now has 2 national titles. He's labeled probably the best coach in college football now that Saban retired, at least one of them. And I just wanted your thoughts on it. So if you look at it, over the first 5 seasons, I'll give you Ryan Day's stats first, and then I'll give you Kirby Smart's. Ryan Day is 56-8, so an 87.5% winning percentage. He's got 2 Big Ten titles, obviously 0 national titles. He does have 1 national title game appearance, and then he has a 1-3 record versus Michigan, who is his biggest foe in the Big Ten, right? Kirby Smart, after 5 seasons, was 52-14, so a 78.7 win percentage. Only had 1 SEC championship, albeit the SEC is a tougher league, so I'll give him that little caveat. He has 0 national titles, 1 national title appearance, and he was 0-3 versus Bama, which is their biggest conference foe, right? Obviously not a rival like Michigan, so Ryan's going to get a little more flack for losing to his rival all the time. But I just thought that was interesting because Kirby Smart, after 5 seasons, I don't think anybody was calling for his job, right?
No, and I think the programs were in 2 different spots because I believe Kirby took over from Mark Richt, and Mark Richt had the 9-3, 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
He also ran into the buzzsaw that was Urban Meyer. And then, really, if you take Urban Meyer and Nick Saban out of the SEC, does Mark Richt have a couple of rings or at least competes for one?
Yeah, but on top of that, I mean, Kirby had to deal with Saban, and he had to deal with Saban at the height of his powers, right? So, when Mark Richt was on his way out was when Urban was at the top. And then Saban came in, dethroned Urban. Mark Richt was still there, and Mark Richt got let go, or however that worked. Kirby came in. There was no Urban anymore. There was all there was Saban, right? I mean, who else in the SEC was really competing? Obviously, it dealt with Joe Burrow at LSU. That was a one-hit wonder. But outside of that, I mean, and Ryan Day in the Big Ten, I mean, who's he competing with other than, Jim Harbaugh when he finally cheated his way to the top or however that went down. So I think they were similar. I would argue, obviously, Kirby had a little bit tougher path because the SEC has played at a higher level than the Big Ten recently, and Saban's a much better coach than Harbaugh. But overall, the stats are just almost identical, and it's like, but you're right. Kirby Smart came in for a guy that couldn't get it done. And so Georgia and that program was probably a little more lenient with it at that point because, and I think Georgia overall as a program historically, I mean, up until Kirby won the Natty twice in a row, they had never won a Natty if I'm correct. And so like the expectations at Georgia were not the same as the expectations at Ohio State. But I do want to put a pause on the Ryan Day hate because he's done pretty well except for Michigan. I mean, that's obviously 0-3 the past 3 years. He should be 2-3 if they played in 2020, which would look a little bit better. But either way, I just think it's interesting how one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in college football after 5 seasons, had statistically worse stats than a guy who is fighting for his job this year.
Right. And to backtrack on the Georgia, they have one consensus natty before Kirby, 1980.
Okay.
And then back in the 40s, there's
yeah,
I think 42, like 3 or 4 teams claimed the natty. So
gotcha.
And I, it's always something when it comes to this, the Ryan Day stuff. It's hard to put how do I want to say this? Put your thumb on it, because you can go through and say that the scrutiny of the first 2 games that he played against Michigan post-COVID, which would be 21 and 22, was, you could argue that they had perhaps and possibly cheated.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can make that argument. I think the problem is 21 and 22, he had CJ Stroud and he had just baller teams. So not winning one of those, even with the sign stealing, I get all that and whatever. But really last year to me is the one that I thought they would lose. I didn't think they were going to lose in 22. I thought CJ Stroud, and obviously he's proven this in the league, was elite. And to lose with that roster and that quarterback at home, that's the one that stings the most, I think, because that was a national championship team. And if you give him that team again, I think he probably wins that game, especially if you take away any advantage that Michigan may have gotten with Connor Stallions and with all that, going on. And I don't know how much of an advantage that really is. So I don't want to sit here and give it an asterisk or anything like that, but I don't know. It could have been. But regardless of all that, I think Ohio State fans and everybody need to kind of pause and understand that he's a really good coach and he's done really well. Now, I know the rule in Columbus, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, and everybody's talked about it. The rule in Columbus is it doesn't matter what you do the first 11 games of the season. All that matters is that last game, to a degree. So losing to Michigan is the quickest way to get kicked out of Columbus. However, and the one thing he has is that he's following a guy who coached 7 years and only had 9 losses, and he has 8 after 5, so he can't lose another game.
Right, and I totally agree with that. It's just the optics of what's going on at Columbus are tough, just for the simple fact of he cannot lose that game at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with that, and that's why this year is so important for him. And I think that's well known. And if he loses to a first-time head coach in Sharon Moore, after he brought back quite literally everybody other than Marvin Harrison Jr., and spent however much they spent, I've heard anywhere from $8 to $15 million in NIL to keep all these guys and go out and get your quarterback who may or may not start. If you don't go out there and beat Michigan, then it was all for nothing.
Oh, and I 100% agree on that end of it. It's the I would say probably the worst loss on the Ryan Day tenure is 21. Because you had Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigwa, and Marvin Harrison Jr. But like we've talked about, the coaching staff was a little bit in disarray.
Yeah, and they've had to deal with that for the past 2 years on the offensive side. And hopefully bringing in Chip Kelly shores that up along with their other hires. And the defense should be a top 5 defense in the country. So I think that's going to be fine. But overall, it was just very interesting to me comparing Kirby Smart and Ryan Day after 5 seasons. Obviously, both first-time head coaches, both prolific coordinators beforehand. So give them a chance. I know after 6 seasons, I believe Kirby had a national title. So here we go. This is Ryan's moment, and he better go do it.
Yes, and whenever I look at it, it's one of those things that Ryan's really got to seize the moment here, because I would say on the plus side of things, if everything goes well, do you think Justin Fry gets offered an OC job and Justin's probably out?
I'm not sure if that's on the table right now. I think Justin's in a peculiar spot, honestly. I think he's a really good offensive line coach. I know he's had some other titles throughout his career, like run game coordinator and stuff like that, that would lead you to believe that he could be an offensive coordinator. And I'm not saying he can't. But I think there was some questions on the offensive line the past year or two. And last year's offensive line got a lot of heat, and I think a lot of that was Kyle McCord's fault, if I'm being honest. But he's going to have to go out and prove that he can put together an offensive line this year. I think they have 4 bona fide starters in offensive line. I think that right tackle position is going to be a question mark. Josh Fryer, I believe, is going to be the starter at that position, but he's going to have to go out and do it. But I don't think he's a real threat to take an OC position this year. And I think Chip Kelly being at Ohio State keeps him here. I think if Justin's career goes the way that I would envision it going, I think he stays here while Chip is the OC and ramps up that offensive line, develops a really great offensive line unit, starts taking over some of the offensive coordinator responsibilities. And I could see him being the offensive coordinator once Chip Kelly leaves.
Yeah, it's just right now when you have a Chip Kelly in there, it's a tough road, because Chip is going to be the offensive coordinator. He's going to control the room. And then you have these young guys like Brian Hartline, Justin Fry, not Chip Kelly, but Keenan Bailey. So, which I've talked to you off air about those thoughts. So, but
yeah,
outside of
that, I think everybody you just named there's only one guy that's going to be an offensive coordinator in the next 5 years or the next 3 years. And I think it's Brian Hartline, but I don't think it's going to be at Ohio State. I think they tried that. And I think if he's going to be one, he has to leave. And I don't think they'll hold him back. I think he'll do that. But on top of that, I think the running backs coach is going to be really great, and he could be somebody down the road that could do that as well. I think Chip's at Ohio State for 2 years, and then he's going to retire, move on, whatever he does.
When it comes to it, I think, looking at Chip's interviews, I think he likes being back and being in a room and actually coaching football and not being the head coach, because I think when you're when you're in the CEO position, you're sitting in the captain chair.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing, because now Chip doesn't have to be the face of a program. He can just come in, coach ball, and it's funny because I believe Kirk Barton off of Buckeye Scoop, when he had first got out of coaching, when Ohio State lost to Penn State, he said he was on vacation, and they watched the game, had a couple of cocktails, and they were down in Florida. And after Ohio State lost to Penn State, he said, this is the reason why I left coaching, because he's like, I'm going to go walk on the beach with my wife. So
Yeah.
could Chip lead into that? And I'm not saying him being the offensive coordinator is a be all end all, but I think there's an added pressure, but I think there's also an immense pressure taking off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is he didn't like the landscape of college football where it is right now. I think in 3 years, it's going to be a totally different landscape. You might have programs that have legit general managers that are in charge of roster retention and managing every part of the NIL and recruiting, and the head coach doesn't have to be the general manager, the head coach, the recruiter, the everything. On top of that, I wouldn't put it past Chip Kelly to parlay this offense coordinator position into an offensive coordinator position in the NFL.
And that was something that was about where I was going to go next. I think Chip would like to go back to the NFL, and so that's just something, because you get those 4 months off. Your guys are already developed. You're not trying to teach, coach, and do everything you need to as a college football coach. In the NFL, everybody's supposed to be a grown up and keeping it moving. So
allegedly, but yeah, so that was just interesting, and I think that's a good stat to keep in mind for anybody that thinks Ryan Day is going to get fired after this year. And I'm not saying he's not going to if he loses to Michigan. But on top of that, obviously, the biggest thing in college football right now, because there's nothing going on, is the fact that EA Sports is dropping college football 25 next year. And they came out, they've been doing this off and on, dropping top programs, dropping top places to play. Well, today they released their top 100 players in the game. And I want to go through just, top 10, and then we'll go through the schools that have the most top 100 players and things like that. But the top 10 players got released today. And let me put it on the screen for everybody watching. And if you're not watching, you can look it up. Hold on one second.
And I believe it comes out next week.
Yeah, next week. Sorry, that's what I meant. I'm like Monday or something like that. But so here's your top 10 players. Obviously, you have Will Johnson, the number 1 overall, tied with Will Campbell and Ollie Gordon the second, who we'll talk about in a minute. But Will Johnson, the top player. How do you feel about that?
Well, when it comes down to it, this is a video game, and I think this was made to ruffle some feathers to a certain extent and to get some people fired up about this.
Okay.
And in my opinion, probably the best 2 college football players on this list are probably going to be Caleb Downs and Travis Hunter.
Okay. I don't disagree. I think Travis Hunter is a great player, and I think that what I like that they did is they didn't give anybody a 99 overall or anything like that. So that gives you room for, as the season goes on, they're gonna do updates and things like that to when players play. They'll get better or worse based on their play, which is awesome. But Will Johnson is by far the best corner in college football. I think that's pretty established. I'd say Travis Hunter is close, but Will Johnson is, I think, first corner taken off the board. So I have no problem with him being number one. I think he is an absolute dude. He's going to be probably the Thorpe winner, and unless something crazy happens. Outside of that, Will Campbell, great left tackle. That's fine, no problem. Ollie Gordon was probably the best running back in college football. They gave him like 7,000 carries, so that helps. But I have no issue with it, honestly. I think Will Howard is rightfully ranked at preseason. If Travis Hunter goes crazy and has a really great start to the season, could I see him bumping up to like a 98 and being the top corner or the top player? Absolutely. Obviously, his offensive play is going to play a role in that as well, but I've heard Will Johnson might play a little offense too. So I have no problem with that. Outside of Will Johnson, you have obviously James Pierce, who's a good player, great player. And the number one player for Ohio State, Caleb Downs, which is interesting. I think that's by far he's the best safety in football. That makes sense. Travis Hunter at 6, also 95. Malachi Starks, 95, great player. Mason Graham, 95, great player. And then Quinshon Judkins, 95, which is another interesting one. The thing that jumped out to me is there's 2 Ohio State players on this list. There's 2 Michigan players on this list, but both Ohio State players are transfers.
Right.
Which, that's interesting. They don't have anybody. Now they have other guys in the top 100, don't get me wrong, but they brought in 2 top 10 players according to this. And it is going to be, I think at the end of the day, you're going to have Will Johnson be like a 98. You're going to have Travis Hunter be like a 98, 99. Caleb Downs could get up to a 97, 98. Quinshon, I don't think he has that much room for improvement from a 95 just because he's going to share the load with Travion so much. But if Travion gets hurt or something like that, I absolutely. And so, but it's just cool, man. Everybody's talking about this game. Everybody's talking about it coming out. So the hype is just crazy. And I think they got it right, honestly. And I think part of it has to be that you're talking about the defending national champions bringing back some really good players. So you're going to rank them high, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I just think because of this game being released and how significant it is, because you got to think it's been since 2014. It's going to be 10 years. I mean, a decade's a long time, and there is a grouping of kids that have never played college football that play tons of video games. And I can tell you this much from personal experience: I have spent a ton of time playing college football as a kid.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, my nephew was 3 or 4 years old when the last one came out. He's never played a college football game, and it's all he talks about. Like, he pre-ordered it, he's downloading it immediately, and it's going to sell like crazy. And the one thing I thought was interesting, which we didn't have in the notes, but they don't need to advertise it at all. Like, you don't see advertisements other than Arch Manning coming out and doing an advertisement saying he's in the game, which is a whole nother topic. I mean, the fact that they paid that dude 50 to 60 grand just to be in the game and do a commercial with Eli, I don't know. I don't like that at all.
Well, my thing is like whenever I seen that for that graphic that they put out that he was making that kind of money on that appearance, I instantly sent it to you and I said, this dude better be everything and more, because it's going to be the biggest outrage at the University of Texas, in my opinion. If I was a Texas fan and we paid this guy almost $4 million paid him almost $8 million over 2 years, and this guy turns out he sucks, yeah, that's a problem.
Not even that. So here's what I think it did. I think EA was stupid to do it. And Here's why. I think, first of all, you're setting a really bad precedent, right? This guy is the backup quarterback at Texas, not the starter, not a Heisman candidate, not somebody that's going to be on the cover, nothing. And you just paid him 50 or 60 grand to be in the game and do a commercial because he said he wouldn't be in the game. What do you think every big time player next year is going to do when it's time to make next year's game and have everybody opt in? They're going to say no.
Yep.
They're going to say no, and they're just going to make sure that you pay them to be in the game. And they saying, well, his last name's Manning, so that's different. Well, okay, cool. Don't put me in the game. And then you're going to lose a lot of the top players because of that. And on top of that, I think I just don't get it. Like, if I'm Quinn Ewers, I'm calling EA Sports like, fuck it, take me out. You mean to tell me I got $600 and a new, like, a version of the game, and my backup got 60 grand? Fuck out of here. Take me out. I don't want to be in the game anymore.
Right. Also, we have breaking news, Carter.
Okay. Yep.
The NBA reaches an 11-year, $76 billion media rights deal that's what The Athletic just reported.
Oh, nice. That's good. I mean, it sounds, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that's more than they were making before. So good for them. Does that include TNT? Do we know?
It doesn't say. It's just
okay. I saw something earlier that they reached a deal with like ESPN, ABC, some others, but TNT still could have a part in it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care. I don't care about the NBA. But that's good for them. I mean, you've seen these contracts; they're ridiculous. And so I saw something today that kid that's 17 that's like practicing with the U.S. men's national team, Cooper, whatever. I forget his name off the top of my head.
Cooper Flag.
Yeah, Cooper Flag. I saw something today. They compared his projected rookie deal compared to LeBron's, and LeBron's was like 5 years, 18 million, and his would be 6 years, 395 million or something. They're projecting in like what it's like, dude, the money's getting stupid. But
even though we don't talk about the NBA, I would like to know who is watching the NBA out of everybody that is watching this show right now. Can somebody give me an accurate number on who's watching the NBA? Because I watched about 30 seconds of a playoff game this year and was completely not interested.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you their numbers are down. Their numbers have been down the past few years. I think I believe, if I'm not wrong, and I could be, I didn't look this up, so I'm just going off what I think I know. I believe that NHL's Game 7 Stanley Cup Final did like 11.1 million, which was more than any NBA playoff game the whole year. So like, it's, and the WNBA is doing numbers now. And so I don't see it. I don't know. I know there's a lot of money in it. So, and there's a lot of money in live sports in general. And so like all these networks and streaming services are overpaying for live sports because it's the only thing that they can get that can hold people's attention. Like nothing else matters. Nothing else is holding people's attention. Nobody else is getting eyeballs live. It's all streaming. It's all after the fact. And live sports is the last thing that can get people to tune in and watch ads, which is the whole reason these deals are so big, is because if I stream something, dude, everything that's on live TV pretty much other than sports, I can get through a streaming service a day later, and I can pay, instead of $7.99 or $9.99, I pay $11.99 to have no ads. And then I don't see those ads, right? And so live sports is the last frontier. And so they're going to keep paying and overpaying for it. And there's nothing, and live sports is the only thing you have to watch live, because I can miss an episode of a show and pretty much, for the most part, I don't need to see it that night because I can avoid it. But live sports, dude, if I miss an Indians game, if I miss a Browns game, if I miss a Notre Dame game, whoever it is, I'm getting updates from ESPN. I'm getting updates from every app on my phone. I'm getting updates from my friends. I'm getting updates from everybody that told me, oh my God, did you see Notre Dame win or whatever? And there's nobody that's the only thing out there doing that. So that's why it's so valuable. And at the end of the day, get your money.
Yeah, I'm not knocking them on that, but also the NBA and Major League Baseball hate their fans because that's why it's never on TV. It's just like if you wanted to try to go watch a baseball game, if it's not on mainstream at all, you can't find it. There's no way you can find it unless you go to a sports bar or like even trying to watch a Pacers game. And I get it. I live in Northeast Indiana. I can't watch a Pacers game on regular TV, and I cannot watch a Pistons game. I can't watch none of that unless I pay for the league pass.
And even then, you're blacked out because you're in a market, I promise you. And so the reason that is because it's all regional. And so it's regional sports contracts. And that was fine when your only option to get TV was through your local cable company. Like here in Columbus, we are in market for every Cleveland sports team and the Blue Jackets. Well, the unfortunate part is Bally Sports, which owns the rights to the Blue Jackets, the Cavs, and the Indians, or Guardians. I don't say that, but Guardians. Bally Sports is only available on DirecTV and Spectrum. So if you don't have traditional cable, you can't get it. So if you have YouTube TV, if you have Sling, if you have any of these other streaming cable services, you don't get it, and there's no way to get it. If I sign up for MLB Pass, I log in, it tracks your location, says, oh, sorry, you're in market, you can't watch it. However, my dad, who lives in Dallas, Texas, can watch every single Indians game out there because he's not in market. And it's ridiculous. That's a whole different, I mean, the regional sports networks, which is why baseball, NBA, NHL struggle so much to get ratings like the NHL and college football, outside of just not being as interesting. But it's because it's harder to watch. You can't watch it like Indians games unless I use Stream East or something that is, less than kosher. I can't watch them unless they're on national broadcast, which is fine. I mean, but I'm not going to pay twice as much a month just to get the Indians when I should be able to get the Indians no matter what.
Or you could mosey on down to the local Yogis.
Exactly. Go down to Yogis or B-Dubs or whatever. But then I'm paying, and that's the other part. Instead of like, if the Browns aren't on local TV here, right? Like, which is not very often. They're normally on local TV, but let's say it's like a Bengals Steelers and Browns Bills or something on at the same time. Local station will put Bengals Steelers on. Well, that's once a week, and that's not every week that I have to go spend $100 at the bar to watch the game. If I want to watch every single Indians game, I'm spending $50 to $100 4 or 5 times a week to try to watch it, right? Mm-hmm. So they play a lot of games, so it's totally different. But that's the problem, and they'll fix it hopefully soon. I know they're working on it. I mean, Bally Sports has been bankrupt for 2 years, and somehow they're still airing games. I don't understand it. But getting back to kind of what we were talking about with the EA Sports stuff and the top players, I do want to put this up just to give everybody an idea of here's the top schools with the most players in the top 100. So obviously I mean, this isn't the end all be all, right? Like this is just EA Sports, right? But top 100 players, you have Ohio State number 1 with 8. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they weren't the top ranked team in EA Sports, right? They were right below Georgia.
Yeah.
So interesting that they have the most players, and it's not just by 1, it's by 2, which is just 2 players. And if you extrapolate it out to the top 500, maybe Georgia has more or whatever. But so you have Ohio State with 8, Georgia and Alabama with 6, Michigan with 5, which a lot of people are sleeping on Michigan, and I'm one of them. And then obviously Oregon, and then it goes down from there.
Right. And the other thing too is that I wanted to shout out the YouTube channel. If you're watching over on Twitter and want to join the conversation, come on over to YouTube and hit the like and subscribe so we can grow the channel as well.
Absolutely. And get in here on the live chat. We got a couple guys in here chatting it up, and we'll get to some of these comments that are going on when they kind of fit into the conversation. But yeah, hop on YouTube, interact with us. But is there any team on this list that surprises you?
The University of Kansas and the University of Arizona.
So let me find both of them. Kansas and Arizona with 3 each. Okay. Obviously, Arizona has that receiver who is their top ranked guy. I didn't look at the full 100, so I don't know who the other 2 are. And Kansas, I know, has a good quarterback. That's probably one of them. I don't see a whole lot of shocks. I mean, I'm curious. I'd have to look at the full 100 to see who like Purdue's guy is and stuff like that. I mean, they have good players. Or ODU. That one was like, who's the top 100 at ODU or Jack State? But other than that, I mean, overall, I think that's pretty in line with what I would expect. Ohio State having 8 is cool. I mean, that's good for Ohio State. Notre Dame having 4, I feel like that's a little low if I'm being honest. But I'd have to look at who the 4 are. Obviously, Benjamin Morrison is definitely one of them. Mitchell Evans is probably another. There's a couple, and the other 2 are on defense, I'm pretty sure. Or Riley Leonard might be in that mix too, but
right.
Interesting.
And another one that's interesting to me is USC and Missouri only having 1 apiece.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought Missouri would be better, and Missouri's only one is their receiver, right? Bradford.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's interesting, but overall, I think it's pretty, run of the mill stuff, but it does give you an idea of what's going on. And if we're touching on other people that have, multiple people or at least one in the race, obviously you got to talk about Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
And they obviously they have 2. One of them is one of the top 3 players in the game, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring him up right now because he is the one that was caught speeding with an open bottle of tequila and an open bottle of vodka in the car and got a DUI. Now, the crazy thing about that is he was at Big 12 Media Days, and his coach was obviously there and was asked about it. Have you heard these comments? You know what?
I read a couple of quotes, but I haven't watched the video.
All right, let's see if we can play this. I'll try to play it, but it's pretty interesting. So we'll try to play. This is Mike Gundy on why he's not suspending his star running back that just got a DUI. Let me go back.
First, I thought, okay. So I looked it up on my phone. What would be the legal limit? Like in Oklahoma, it's 0.08. In Ollie was 0.1. So I looked it up, and it was based on body weight. Not to get into the legal side of it, but I thought really 2 or 3 beers or 4. I'm not justifying what Ollie did. I'm telling you what decision I made. Well, I thought I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life. And it was just fine. So I got lucky. People get lucky. First, I thought, okay.
All right. So that is Mike Gundy's response to his star running back getting a DUI. Now, let me start by saying I'm not trying to crucify the kid. That is an amazing response. That is a coach that doesn't give a single fuck. Like, I don't give a fuck, dude. Like, what? Who says that, first of all? I mean, having 2 or 3 or 4 beers, which is what he said, is listen, most people listening, most people in the world have probably done that at one time or another, and it's wrong to do. It's not a good idea. But wow, to say that on it, and then to go on and to double down on it and say, I've probably done it 1,000 times. Now, he's since tweeted and said he meant made mistakes 1,000 times. Dude, I listened to the clip. That's not what you meant. That's not at all what you meant.
That is not what you meant.
It's not at all what you meant. I get it. And like, I probably haven't done that 1,000 times. I've done it a couple times. Like, I've definitely made mistakes and I've done those things and like I shouldn't have. But that is insane. Like, and later in the clip, he goes on to say that his punishment for him will be that he'll probably make him carry the ball 50 times week 1. Like, oh, okay. That's quite a punishment. Make him rack up stats. That's a good punishment. I was blown away by that. And Mike Gundy is obviously, he's a man. He's 40. He can take it, all that stuff. But I was absolutely blown away by that comment and just the audacity to go out there and defend. And just so you know, a 0.1, I agree. It's not atrociously over the limit or anything like that, but it's definitely not just 2 or 3 beers over the course of a couple hours. That's just not how that works unless Ollie is like a 75-year-old chick or 75-pound chick. Like, dude's probably 225, 2 or 3 beers wouldn't put him over. And it's insane to just say that and just be like, no, I'm not going to punish him.
Okay, let's unpack this. Okay, first of all, I'm not a legal expert on this. And, does everybody make mistakes? Yes. But let's just look at the guy's haircut. And if you look at his haircut, doesn't that just say it all? You're the face of a major Division I program, and you look like an asshole. And then you go out and you say, well, we're going to punish him by making him carry the ball 50 times a game. Like, dude, come on. You would have just been better off of not saying anything and pulled the whole Gronk. Next question, or the interview's over. I get you have to face things head on, but you would think you would have a better game plan. Somebody that's in media relations would have said, if they ask this, you might want to say this. PR
Right.
department, somebody, not just, hey, we're Oklahoma State. Hey, I got a mullet.
Yeah. I mean, on top of that, like, that just, it'd be like Kirby Smart and be coming out and being like, yeah, dude, like, he was only going 155. Like, it's not that big a deal. Right? Like, he didn't kill anybody. Like, it happens. He got lucky, but it just was wild.
And the overwhelming thing that's really interesting to me is that when you have a situation that's serious like this and you're not going to punish him, we're going to give the ball to him 50 times a game, i.e. that says the rabbit has the gun in college sports right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, although I don't think Ollie Gordon could have gone anywhere, so I don't think there's anything to worry about if you punish him. Like, there's no open transfer portal right now for him because his coach didn't leave and all that. But outside of just that, it's like, it's such an old school mentality, and I don't hate it because, like, these are kids, and Nick Saban's famous for saying it. Would you rather me kick him off the team and him become homeless and be driven to crime because of that? Instead, I'm going to discipline him internally and mold him into a better man and all that bullshit, I guess. But it just amazes me that you would go as far as to be like, yeah, I mean, it was only a 0.1. Like, he wasn't blowing like twice the legal limit. It's not a big deal. And it's like, dude, I'm just waiting. You know that there's going to be repercussions from that. Like, Mothers Against Drunk Driving are going to be like, what?
Yeah. And
Like,
also, let's not forget, not trying to pile on the guy, but there's another guy that had substance abuse issues by the name of Justin Blackman. And we know how that story turns out. So, Ollie, I would just say, brother, get it together. Get it together.
yeah. And I mean, it's not like he's obviously not their parent. As much as coaches want to be like, I'm a father figure and all that stuff. Like, you're not the parent. I get it. But you are in a position of authority over the kid. And if he's doing things wrong, I think it is your responsibility as a coach to discipline him. And otherwise, what are you teaching him? You're teaching him that his actions have no consequences, right? And if he goes out this year and balls out, goes to the NFL, he's going to have a lot more money than he does now, which he references in his clip about how the guy makes a bunch of money and he's lucky that it didn't go worse for him. And it's like, dude, you're just teaching him that as long as you don't really, really, really fuck up, you can make a bunch of money and be okay. And it's like, no, teach him that his actions have consequences. That way, when he makes even more money next year as an NFL running back, he doesn't do the same thing and end worse and him end up like Henry Ruggs.
Yeah.
So
yep.
It was interesting. Mike Gundy is the gift that keeps on giving with some of these comments, and I've heard people compare him to Mike Leach, and I want to put that to bed right now. That is not even close. Just because they both give you sound bites doesn't mean they're the same. Mike Leach was funny. Mike Gundy's kind of an asshole.
Well, and this is just me personally. I think I'm a pretty good judge of reading people. There's something about him that just seems shady. And
for sure.
I can't put my thumb on it, but just something there I just don't like.
Having said all of that, whatever Ollie Gordon's over under is on yards in week 1, hammer the over.
Yes.
So moving on from that, just a little bit about what's gone on recently and everything like that. Let's jump into some Notre Dame stuff. Obviously, the big news out of Notre Dame this week is one of their top recruits, Ivan Taylor, son of Pittsburgh Steeler player Ike Taylor, flipped from Notre Dame to Michigan. In your opinion, how big of a deal is this?
When it comes to this, I don't have a whole bunch of detail on it, but from the outside looking in, a lot of people are blaming that the kid doesn't want to work, and you can say that he doesn't want to compete. It doesn't really matter because if he enrolled early at Notre Dame, he could leave in March. So it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think NIL played a huge factor in this.
So here's the thing that I know and what makes it very interesting. The timing of it is impeccable. I mean, just absolutely. And I'm not saying NIL had nothing to do with it. I don't think it did, just because of the school that he went to. And I know their NIL hasn't been up to par. However, Notre Dame received a commitment on Friday from Jadon Blair, another safety, another top recruit in the 2025 class. Monday, he flips. And from what I've heard, it's because he didn't want Notre Dame to take Jadon Blair in the class. He thought he was good enough, he was big time enough, that they didn't need to add another safety in this class, that he was going to be the heir apparent. He wasn't going to start his freshman year. Probably they had Adon Schiller, but he was willing to compete at that level. But adding another safety, I think, pushed him to consider other schools. And it's amazing that it was Michigan, which tells me I don't think Bama wanted him as bad as the people thought.
Well, I think kind of at this point in college football, I think it's a lot about reps. And the more guys you add to the room, the less reps you get. So,
I mean, I don't think that's true. If you go out there, I mean, maybe initially, but if you go out there and prove, like, if I'm Ivan Taylor and they get Jadon Blair and I know I'm a better player than him, bro, I'm getting more reps than him. I promise you. No position coach in the country is going to split reps evenly. They're going to give the guys that are better more reps to get them ready. And then the guys that are younger or not as good will get the remainder of the reps. And when it's time, they'll get more reps. And that's probably when I'm already the starter. So I wouldn't worry about reps ever, because there's never been a college football coach in the world that has split reps evenly just to be nice. Like, that just doesn't happen. And if I have a kid I think is better, I'm going to give him more reps. And if the other kid in today's day and age transfers, and it's not like I'm not giving a senior more reps over a freshman and pushing out the freshman. But if you're the same age, I'm giving the better one more reps. It's the same reason that Julian Sain gets more reps over Aaron Nolan. Dude, I don't care. Like, Aaron Nolan can leave as long as Julian Sain is what I think he is. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, when you see a clear discrepancy in talent, you're going to give the reps to the guy who's better. And if the other guy leaves, we're recruiting next year. So we'll get another guy. It's fine. I'm not worried about that. But I think he saw a really good defensive back recruiting class with obviously Blair. And then you have Ethan Long at safety as well. And then Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary and Cree Thomas, who are corners, but he saw a strong defensive back class on top of what they already have there. And I think he got a little nervous that he was going to get lost in the shuffle and figured he could go to Michigan. And he's one of their top recruits now, he already was for Notre Dame. But I do think that plays a role in it. And from what I've heard, that definitely did.
right. And it's never good to lose a kid, but whenever you break this down, is this going to be is the program going to fold up shop and they're going to quit playing football in South Bend? No. So I think everybody needs to relax to a certain extent, but I think if you over recruit and you have a crowded room and Michigan offers a couple 100,000 more, why not go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that money had anything to do with it. I'm sure maybe there was a slight discrepancy, but if Notre Dame was that concerned about it, I'm pretty sure Notre Dame would have matched it or exceeded it. But I think with the recruiting class Notre Dame has coming in, as well as the roster they already have in place at that position, I think they're like, all right, that's fine. I think it's a mistake, but go do what you do. And the other thing that I think is, I don't think this impacts their recruiting class outside of this. I don't think Ivan Taylor really impacts the other people that are committed as much as some of the other recruits, like a Deuce Knight, where I think you might lose other guys. I think this is a one-off, and I think you're not going to see a mass exodus from this recruiting class. Now, it does drop Notre Dame down to the number 6 class overall. Whatever, that's fine. I told everybody when they were the number 1 class to be ready. It's going to happen. Other teams are going to get commits. You're going to lose a guy or two, which they have. And that's just how this thing goes. But overall, I think it's Michigan fans specifically want to make this into a really big deal. And it is for Michigan. It absolutely is. Their recruiting class was terrible up until a couple weeks ago, and now it's creeping up, and they might have a really good recruiting class, but they want to make this into like, oh, see, we took your best guy. That wasn't their best recruit, by the way. I've seen that so many places. Michigan takes Notre Dame's top recruit. He wasn't the top recruit. he was like number 3, and they got plenty of others at that position. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think it'll be fine. And that's if he even sticks at Michigan. He's still got to sign that letter, guys. So we got plenty of time. And I'm not saying Notre Dame gets him back, but he could go elsewhere. And his dad is maybe pulling the strings a little bit, trying to get him the most money, trying to get him the most favorable position and things like that. So if there's another offer that comes along that's a little bit better, he might flip again.
Yep, and for me, that is a serious red flag.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I don't think it impacts the other NFL sons that they have, which I know people have speculated. Outside of that, in the recruiting world, Derek Meadows, who is the top guy on the board at Notre Dame right now that is not committed, the wide receiver out of Florida, is set to commit on Saturday. He announced it. He's going to commit Saturday. Notre Dame has been heavy on him for a long time, and Notre Dame was the first major player in college football to be heavy on him. Do you think it's Notre Dame?
Do I think he'll sign? Do I think he'll commit to Notre Dame?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's maybe 50-50 at this point.
Yeah. I unfortunately, I think it's a little worse than that. Everything I've read, but
I think Bama and LSU, I think, are in the lead.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50 between Bama and LSU, maybe like 45-45 with a 10% chance of Notre Dame. I hope I'm wrong. Notre Dame's expected to make one last real push in these last few days. But everything I've read, everybody I've talked to, it's Bama or LSU, which sucks because I've said for a long time this would be a cornerstone piece for this class if they could land it. That would really catapult them and make them a top 5 class for sure. But I just don't think at the end of the day, he's from Florida. He's a South kid, and Bama and LSU are pushing hard. And the good thing we have is that LSU apparently doesn't have any money, at least from what Brian Kelly told us, because that's why they can't compete anymore.
Because he's the beacon of integrity.
Right, exactly. But I think it's Bama. If I had to, I'm not a recruiting guy. I can't crystal ball or anything. But if I had to, I'm guessing he goes to Bama, and it's another splash for DeBoer. But I think Marcus Freeman and the coaching staff at Notre Dame has done a beyond excellent job with him. And so if they do make this last kind of ditch effort, Hail Mary, really big pitch, and it sways him and he goes to Notre Dame, I would be surprised. But I think that's how good at recruiting Marcus Freeman can be. So I wouldn't be totally shocked. But I think it's down to those 3. And I think Bama is in the lead with LSU being closely behind.
And I think this is, if you look at it for what it is, Bama and LSU have first-round receivers almost every year.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've read about it is LSU's been putting receivers into the NFL at a really high clip. Obviously, Neighbors, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Bama's done the same. Notre Dame just hasn't done that. And outside of Chase Claypool, and that's about it. And he wasn't really a success. But I think it comes down to that, and that's probably the recruiting pitch on top of the money that Bama and LSU will offer them. Not that Notre Dame can't offer it, but I think at the end of the day, the money's going to be similar. So he's going to go to a place that has a little bit higher success rate of putting big-time receivers into the NFL because that's what he wants to be. And in order to change that, you got to start putting receivers in the NFL. And you hope that you can get a guy like him, like Meadows, to come and you can put it together and put him in the NFL. That way he can be your cornerstone to building that. I mean, that's what Ohio State did for a long time with people like Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, and obviously more recently Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, you build that pipeline of receivers that went to the NFL and were successful, and then you can recruit easier against some of these other schools that have done that as well. Notre Dame's still struggling to do that. So you got to get some guys that are not like Terry McLaurin. And Curtis was a pretty highly recruited guy, but Terry McLaurin, not a highly recruited guy. Paris Campbell, not that highly recruited. I mean, decent. But some of those guys were not that highly recruited. And being able to develop them and put them into the NFL is why you're able to get the likes of Garrett Wilson. I mean, Chris Olave was only a 3-star. So you get a guy like Chris Olave to come in, and he becomes a first-round pick. Then you can go get Jackson Smith and Jigba. You can go get Emeka Ibuka. You can go get Marvin Harrison Jr., also only a 3-star. But you get some of those guys and you develop them, and that's how you do it. And so Notre Dame has a lot of those guys on the roster that are not highly recruited guys. And now it's time to develop them and get them into the NFL and show, hey, Notre Dame can get you there. And now we can take the highly talented guys that are a little bit easier to get there and build off that.
Yeah, like Terry and Paris were not highly recruited guys. Huh. I wonder who found those guys.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He was a scrub.
I hope he's not watching this, but you brought up receiver development and stuff like that. I don't know. Did you see the thing on Hard Knocks?
Yes, I did.
There was a clip there of
I should have clipped that for us. But yeah,
about a shitty throw in Ohio State game, and all year everybody tried to tell him, and you had the parents sliding in people's DMs, not only just your brothers, but other people.
Oh no, he was sliding everywhere.
And
he was like on a goddamn slip and slide.
And
so here's the funny thing, and we can touch on that real quick before we wrap up. The thing about that is, I took away from that more than anything was, God, I would have drafted Marvin Harrison no matter what. He would have been my Vontae Mack. Like, I'm talking no matter what. With that, the way he responded to those questions were so perfect. And obviously he's been coached. His dad was an NFL Hall of Famer. He knows how to do this process. And maybe behind closed doors, he would have been like, yeah, that was a shitty throw. But he answered it so perfectly. And I think, and here's what is so funny is you have Ohio State fans commenting on that video and stuff like, dude, that guy was setting him up to see how he would respond. And it's like, no, it really was a shitty throw. It was not one of McCord's shittiest throws, but it was a shitty throw. And so having an NFL scout, NFL exec question him, be like, dude, obviously you played with a quarterback at a really high level, CJ Stroud. And then you had a younger guy trying to like learn the position, like trying to be nice to Kyle and be like, hey, he wasn't CJ Stroud, but he's developing. So, and you get wide open like that, and he just underthrows you like that. Like, what do you say to the quarterback? And Marvin's answer is perfect. He's like, oh, I don't say anything to the quarterback. Like, that's not my place.
And that's what makes Marv a consummate professional.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But then the guy follows it up and goes, yeah, but that was a shitty throw.
He doubled down.
And Marv just kind of goes, yeah, I mean, I could have made a play on it. And it's like, okay, yeah, good luck. Like, yeah, I that's fine, which I know, and I know other people have talked about it, and they're like, man, some other receivers would have been like, yeah, it was fucking terrible.
No, that's just like taking a vote for quarterback in the quarterback room with your receivers.
Right? Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. But regardless, that was a funny clip, and there's been a lot of funny clips on Hard Knocks. But yeah, and the thing about it is, let the Giants try to draft Kyle McCord next year and see how that goes.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say he is an undrafted free agent, and he might make a camp, and then it is XFL, baby.
Nah, he's going first round, buddy. Haven't you heard Derek?
Yeah. I guess with that, we can wrap this thing up.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate everybody for watching us, whether you're on X or whether you're on YouTube. And if you want a better experience, come on over to YouTube and get interactive in the chat with us. Also, hit the like and subscribe. We are live every Wednesday night around 7:30ish, depending on both of our schedules. But with that being said, starting in August, we're going to go twice a week. So,
yes, sir.
So probably around the same time. We haven't picked a day yet that works for both of us, but we're going to start going 2 shows a week and start pumping some more content out. But with that, everybody, happy late 4th. Everybody stay safe out there. And Carter, you got anything?
No, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Make sure, like Duke said, like and subscribe, share it, be a friend, tell a friend, and stay blessed, y'all.
And Apple Music, Spotify, and PodBean. If you don't want to see us or if you miss it live and don't want to listen to it on YouTube and want to listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music or PodBean. But with that being said, that's a wrap, people. Everybody have a good night.